Muhammad ibn Abdullah Hassan, the Mad Mullah of Somalia.
The Mad Mullah of Somalia is a term used to refer to Muhammad Abdullah Hassan, a Somali religious and political leader who led a prolonged resistance against British and Italian colonial forces in the early 20th century.
His followers viewed him as a spiritual leader and protector, while his adversaries labelled him the Mad Mullah due to his fiery rhetoric and resistance to colonial rule. Here's an overview of his life and legacy. Muhammad Abdullah Hassan was born around 1856 in the Ogaden region into a Hati clan, a subclan of the Darod, which gave him influence among the Somali people. His early life was marked by studies in Islamic jurisprudence and Sufism. He spent time in Yemen and had exposure to the Islamic world, which influenced his later religious and political ideology. Hassan became a prominent figure in the Sufi tradition and was seen as a religious scholar. He was associated with the Salihiyya Sufi order, which emphasized piety and purity. Over time, he began to speak out against what he viewed as the corrupting influence of colonialism, Western culture, and the spread of Christianity in the Somali territories. By the early 1900s, Somalia was divided into regions controlled by the British, Italians, and the French. The British controlled the northern part, British Somaliland, while Italy controlled the south, Italian Somaliland. Hassan's rise to prominence came as he opposed both the British and Italian colonial powers, who were encroaching on Somali lands and imposing foreign rule. In 1899, Hassan founded the Dervish movement, a religious and nationalist group that sought to unite Somali people against foreign colonial rulers. His followers, who came to be known as the Dervishes, were committed to resisting colonial occupation, and they adopted a form of jihad, holy war, against the British and Italians. The British and Italians responded to Hassan's resistance with military force, launching several campaigns to defeat his movement. Despite his relatively small forces, Hassan was able to inflict significant damage on the colonial powers. For example, in 1904, Hassan's forces ambushed a British column, killing dozens of soldiers. One of the most famous battles in Hassan's resistance was the Battle of Dul Madoba, where his dervishes inflicted heavy casualties on British forces. The British, underestimating Hassan's capability, were forced to retreat. The British mounted a massive campaign against Hassan in the early 1900s, which included using airplanes for reconnaissance and bombing, a new technique at the time. Despite these technological advances, Hassan's forces continued to elude British control for many years, thanks to their knowledge of the terrain and effective guerrilla tactics. Hassan also clashed with Italian forces in southern Somalia, and while they were able to initially suppress his movement, Hassan's persistence kept the conflict alive for many years. While he was viewed by the British as a madman, Hassan became a symbol of Somali resistance and nationalism. He is remembered as a leader who fought for Somali sovereignty at a time when the country was fragmented and colonized. His fight against colonial powers helped sow the seeds of Somali nationalism, which would eventually lead to the independence of Somalia in 1960. Hassan's resistance had a lasting impact on Somali history, influencing future generations of Somali nationalists and independence leaders. His use of religious symbolism, his ability to unite different Somali clans against a common enemy, and his fierce determination have made him a historical figure of great importance. In some Somali communities, he is still celebrated as a national hero,